When it comes to older games, generally, I go with the emulation option if it's too much of a hassle to play on older hardware. With a PC that's good enough to decently emulate PS3 and Switch games, I find it hard to justify buying game compilations and re-releases unless there's something that the official release can provide that's better than an unofficial emulator. Whether it be online multiplayer, improved models, increased resolution, better control, or native widescreen support, even then I sometimes prefer to play the originals or just emulate them. But when a certain game has a specific feature that's either hard to access by official means nowadays, or even through emulation, and its official re-release revives or revamps said feature, then that's when I prefer to buy it. For example, the re-release of Mario Advanced 4 having all of the levels that were only unlockable by scanning exclusive e-reader cards on the Game Boy Advance by using the e-reader peripheral. Or my personal favorite, the re-release of the first two generations of Pokémon on 3DS. First of all, they re-added events and certain features that the originals had. Pokémon Crystal on the 3DS added the GS Ball to catch Celebi, which was previously locked behind a limited special event. And Pokémon Yellow added the Surfing Pikachu minigame to the base game, as opposed to the original, where you needed a special Pikachu that knew how to surf to play it, which was only unlockable if you had Pokémon Stadium. In general, the Pokémon games on 3DS are probably the best way to play the original first two gens, even better than emulation in my opinion. It's the easiest way to trade between games, using the 3DS's wireless capabilities to link them up. I know that there's ways to do this on emulators, but something about it is better this way. First off, it makes it a lot more accessible. Instead of only being able to trade with yourself, you can actually trade with other people like if it was the original game. You can transfer your Pokemon from the first gen to generation 6 and 7. And for me, the biggest reason why I love the 3DS release is that on top of that, you don't have to worry about a save battery running out on you because all of the data is stored on the 3DS. All of the anxiety of wondering how long your battery has left is gone. But of course, it wasn't necessarily perfect. For some reason, red and blue are locked to monochrome colors. There's no way to change this at all. Even the Super Game Boy and Game Boy Advance let you change the colors, and you're locked to one save per game. All of the other virtual console games let you use save states except for the Pokemon games, which makes sense to prevent Pokemon and item duplication, especially since you can transfer them to newer gens. But for $10, Nintendo didn't even allow you to have multiple saves, obviously just so you would buy the other games. Good thing my 3DS is modded. Oh, and each language option was sold separately. Why? The newest Pokemon games, even on the 3DS, let you pick a language option for free. And of course, you can only trade if you have multiple consoles, even if you have multiple games on the same console. But I'd say that the good outbalanced the bad, and it was an overall good release, except for the fact that they were missing one crucial part of the first two generations. It's Pokemon Stadium, you read the title, it's Pokemon Stadium. For some silly reason, they never ported Pokemon Stadium to the Virtual Console. Pokemon Stadium would have been perfect on the Wii U. The whole point of Pokemon Stadium was to give you something to do after beating the game. In Gen 1, after you caught all the Pokemon, there's quite literally nothing to do. You can gamble, refight the Elite Four, and that's about it. Having the option to use your Pokemon in a competitive environment, especially on the big screen before the series was 3D and before battle towers were a thing, was legendary. It was the first introduction to competitive style battling for Pokemon fans. It was the basis for such a core part of Pokemon today. But playing Pokemon Stadium with no Pokemon game, bare bones, is terrible. It was already possible to connect the 3DS to the Wii U wirelessly, seeing how we got stuff like the Smash Bros. Controller application that literally turned your 3DS into a controller for Smash Bros. On the Wii U. Just for a second, imagine if a port of Pokemon Stadium on the Wii U was actually compatible with the 3DS Pokemon ports. It would have been such a great idea to connect your Pokemon games on the 3DS to Pokemon Stadium on the Wii U Virtual Console. Imagine using your 3DS like a controller with a transfer pack, being able to pick which Pokemon game to use on your 3DS for Stadium. You could battle with a friend and use the 3DS like a controller to select which moves to use, or if you don't want to use your 3DS as a controller, you could potentially upload your Pokemon save file from 3DS to the Wii U to use in-game. and pick which save file to use with some sort of virtual transfer pack before you start up the game. You could play the Game Boy Tower on your 3DS. Why stop there? They could implement extra features to the base game to make it more forgiving to newer players. By this, I don't mean make the game easier, but they could potentially add certain features to make raising and training Pokemon easier. If you want to raise a good team for Generation 1, you have to do a bit of planning and micromanaging before you even finish the game. Some of the best TMs are just casually given to you throughout the game and are non-renewable. So if you want multiple Pokemon with those specific moves that can only be learned through TM, your only options are to have 2 different playthroughs and trade a Pokemon from one game to the other. That way you utilize both TMs, or use the missing no glitch and duplicate those TMs. Those are your only options without using some sort of external cheating device. When I played Stadium using my copy of Red, I forgot that I used my TMs for Thunderbolt, Earthquake, and Fire Blast already, and I did not want to play through the game again for like a 5th time, so I just cut my losses and used my team without the moves I wanted. Maybe if there's a way to give you TMs using the in-game PC storage and transfer them to your Pokemon game, it would make training a lot easier. Also, maybe a level down or level up option would be useful for the game. Considering you can rent a Dragonite at level 50 and he can only be obtained at level 55, it wouldn't be too weird to allow it. But at that point, it seems like you'd be better off just remastering the game. Either that, or maybe have some sort of way to upload multiple save files for a single game. Because there's no level down feature, you have to register a Pokemon in a team at that specific level for a specific cup if you want to battle with it. If a specific Pokemon surpasses the level cap for a certain cup, then it can't be registered for that cup ever again. So you have to register it in a team and be 100% sure that's the Pokemon and team you want to use if you want to use it again, because you'll never be able to change anything on that team at all once it's registered. And one of the lowest level requirements for a specific cup is 15 to 20. One of the eligible Pokemon for that cup is Lapras, a Pokemon that you can only get once per save. You get Lapras midway through the game at level 15, so if you wanted to use Lapras for the different cups, then you would have to keep registering it in teams as you level it up, because you can't go back. Either that or use rental Lapras. So you have to be 100% sure that you're happy with the teams that you registered Lapras in, because you won't be able to register it again in any of the cups that require a lower level cap. So if you change your mind about it, your only options are start a new game or just breed Lapras in Generation 2. But maybe it might be a bit overkill to make that many changes at that point. Then there's trade evolutions. They could easily give us the ability to evolve trade Pokemon by letting us have another virtual transfer pack in Socket 2, so we can trade with another Pokemon game that we own, or a Pokemon game that one of our friends own. But now that Nintendo missed their chance to do this years ago, and the 3DS and Wii U are dead, with the eShop and online services shut down, there is nothing that can be done. I don't even know why I conceptualized this. This is completely useless at this point. But then, Nintendo revealed that they were releasing a Nintendo 64 Online Classics. We were stuck with no re-release of Pokemon Stadium until the Switch with the Switch Online emulators. With this, we got Game Boy and Nintendo 64 games on the same console, and they've released Pokemon Stadium with Pokemon cannot be transferred to this game. Oh, okay. But then, they released Pokemon Stadium 2, and alongside it, they gave us the classic Pokemon game on Game Boy, Pokemon TCG. Oh, and as of now, we still have no mainline Pokemon games on Switch Online. Okay, this is bad, but Switch Online does have a special editions version of certain games, which basically gives you a 100% save file to mess around with. So maybe they gave us a special edition version with a Pokemon game that has Pokemon that we can use to battle with, right? Nothing. They literally just ROM dumped the game onto the Switch Online, slightly enhanced the graphics and visuals, and called it a day. Literally half of the features that the game was advertised for is unavailable. Pokemon Stadium is basically DLC for the main games rather than a standalone game. Playing Pokemon Stadium using only the default Pokemon is like playing a demo. the rental Pokemon you get are notoriously terrible. Take Alakazam for example, one of the best Pokemon of Generation 1. His strengths lie in speed and special moves. This is the level 50 Alakazam that you can rent. Out of the 4 psychic attacks that he can learn, they gave him the second weakest psychic attack, Psybeam, with a base power of 65 and 100% accuracy, when he can learn Psychic, which has a base power of 90 with 100% accuracy. Then he knows Tri-Beam, which is not a bad move, but a bad move for Alakazam because he has a terrible attack stat. Disable, and then Metronome, a move that's entirely based on luck. It picks a completely random move to use that can be either good or terrible, but you'll never know until you use it. So yeah, he's borderline useless. And like many other rentals, they suck. They have whatever stats and half of their moves are garbage, and they're the same on Switch Online. As of now, we still don't have any of the mainline Pokemon games on Switch Online, and it would have been perfect to use them with Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2 on the same console. They expect people to pay $50 a year for this? There's quite literally no noticeable changes besides the color Jinx.
Is that blackface, dude?
Which isn't even a change exclusive to the Switch, so you might as well just emulate them. This really sucks, but there's still time to fix this. Nintendo can redeem themselves if they at least released an SP version of Stadium 1 and 2. It would make the game a lot more tolerable. It's really the least that they could do if they don't plan on releasing any of the Generation 1 or 2 games at all, and something tells me they might never see the light of day on the Switch. But if they do, then why not give us an English localization of the Japanese Stadium games too? In case you didn't know, Pokémon Monster Stadium, the original Japanese version of the games, are actually a lot different compared to the American releases. First of all, the first game in the series, Pokémon Monster Stadium, was actually never localized, so Pokémon Stadium 1 and 2 are actually Pokémon Monster Stadium 2 and 3. Getting an official way for non-Japanese players to play the original Pokemon Stadium games would be huge. And not only that, the Japanese games actually have different content. While we only got 4 cups to play in Pokemon Stadium, the original Japanese version had 6 to choose from, 3 of which are exclusive to this version. Getting a localization for these versions would be such a cool idea, especially if they made them compatible with the English Generation 1 and 2 games. In conclusion, Nintendo, please re-release Pokemon Stadium in its full capacity. It's such a great gem that needs to be experienced the way that God intended. Legit, half of the things that the game was made for is useless, and emulation does nothing. Trying to get the full experience on the original hardware it came out on costs a damn fortune nowadays. But of course, Nintendo is allergic to making money and taking opportunities. So until they release something that's worth spending money on, I'll stick to my OG hardware and emulators.